Hello, Nope Coach Fam Bam. It's Suzanne Culberg. Welcome to episode 87, People Pleasing and Drinking. So today I have a fabulous guest, Mary Wagstaff. And Mary approached me about coming on the show and talking about the link between people pleasing and drinking. I can relate this to people pleasing and eating. So maybe we should have called it people pleasing and consuming. But how often we get stuck into habits, or we formed a habit that we want to shift out of. And then I'm going to preface this before we even dive into it. I used to be an overeater, and there would be people, and I'm imagining it's similar with drinking, that you hang out with because you can eat or because you can drink. Like, let's go do a movie marathon, or let's go to a restaurant or someplace. And when you aren't eating to excess, or I imagine drinking to excess, sometimes you can question that connection. Is there anything else to this? Or sometimes the opposite, you do value the friendship, but then when you're wanting to shift your behavior, it can cause some tension because they're like, don't you like us anymore? And this is just a whole bucket. So we'll see how much we can uncover today. So without further ado, Mary, let you weigh in on this.
Yes. Oh my goodness. As you were talking, I was like, yes, there is so much more to people pleasing and drinking because there's just so many layers of it. But the first thing that you and I were talking about, and so I'll just start there, is really about what you were talking about, relationships and even preferences. And it's kind of like people pleasing ourselves. And what I have found with the clients that I work with is that as we age and we grow and we mature, our preferences change, our likes and dislikes change. We grow into different tastes of things. But oftentimes, if alcohol has been a constant in our lives since it is a rite of passage in the Western world. I use rite of passage kind of in quotes, and it's, an unconscious choice for so many people, but it does create a cognitive, connection, and it is habit forming. And so when people associate pretty much everything that they've ever done with the specific vibration of alcohol, even if you're not over drinking, there's often not often, but there is a disconnect or a dissociation from your 100% authentic, embodied, emotional self. And as you age and you mature and you grow, those things change. As you enter the phase of motherhood, it very much changes, like things that you want to do, times that we go to bed, what's important, right? And oftentimes there is it causes a big, shift in identity for people, and that people kind of freak out because we are sold this, kind of forever 21 endless summer idea. So, it's like forever young, and that's just the way it is. And we don't really honor in our culture, especially with women, the natural maturing process of different phases and archetypal energies that we go through. And so oftentimes when people are starting to get curious about their relationship with alcohol just through observation, not by judging it or shaming it, and just being like, do I really want this anymore? Along with that territory comes the interconnectedness of the circumstances in which they're engaging in, right? So when there's not this kind of overlay of this frequency of alcohol, which lowers our inhibitions, shifts our emotional state, even with one drink, now we're in full awareness. So there's a renegotiation of, like you said, the people that I'm spending time with, the things that I'm engaging in. And that can bring up a lot for people. It's very unsettling at first, right? Because like the way we engage with others is how we find a lot of safety in the world. But oftentimes what I've found, especially for like more introverted people, is that they discover that they were using alcohol in so many circumstances to do things that they wouldn't normally want to engage in because it helped them really quiet their mind, and really just kind of appease their own preferences. So that's one of the big pieces of it, and uncovering that and learning, and I'm sure this is what you teach so much, is learning that it's okay to say no to a Friday night party for your best friend, right? When you'd rather be at home with your kids hanging out. It's okay to decide to be social, during the day, and not really want to be social at night. And so there's just this liminal space of figuring out what is me, right? Like, do I like this? And then there's questions that we ask, and there's a process of investigation we go through in the coaching process of really understanding what is my heartfelt intention for going, right? And if there isn't one, and I would just be normally drinking, then I always say, like, don't go. But people worry oftentimes that am I just not going because I'm afraid of being social without alcohol, right? Like, am I avoiding things? Because that's one of the things that I don't teach people to do. I want people to experience everything that they want to, and as far as circumstances in life, without the need for alcohol. And I teach them how to do that, and we work on that together. But there is a reimagining, and there's oftentimes like creativity, and I use the term sobriety kind of loosely just because it has so many connotations, but alcohol free living and creativity, as you shift gears, really go hand in hand, because there's so much more that often people don't engage in, because either the presence or the absence of alcohol just kind of gets in the way of all of that.
I love that.
So
There's
yeah.
so much that I want to explore, but the first thing I want to bring everyone's attention to is when you mentioned preferences and how they change. So very recently, I came across a book that I'd read as a teenager. I was like, I loved this book. I couldn't put it down. I can't wait to read it again. Pick it up, bring it home. So we've got one of those like street libraries, and it was there. And anyway, started reading it. I was like, this is total trash. Like, what was teenage Suze thinking? And it was like, the book has not changed. I have a lot in 20 years. No surprise there. So sometimes we anchor a behavior to an experience. So it could be, going out and having a drink. And it's kind of like, as you said, going out can help, drinking can help lower the inhibitions, or drinking can help, you loosen up a bit, whatever. The same is with eating. It's kind of like, because the thing is, I will admit this on the podcast. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm a teetotaler. Don't drink. And people, it's funny when you say that, people have reactions. Are you religious? Is it this? Is it that? Never really particularly liked the taste. Know that I have an addictive personality, so have personally stayed away from alcohol. But the anchor of the behavior for some people could be drinking, for some people could be eating, for some people could be like whatever it is, the thing. When you explore beyond that, do I actually want, like, what if you're only going for the food, if you're only going for the alcohol, and then exploring, is this an event I actually want to attend? Sometimes, being able to say, no, thank you, or not this time, or my preference, like, I'd like to hang out with you. Could we do this instead? Because I think sometimes when we say no, then people will make it mean they don't like me, or they don't this, or they don't that. But it could be like, I just, I do want to hang out with you. But, during the day, as you said, your preferences change, your lifestyle change. Once you have children, it's harder to go out at night. It's not impossible, but there's a babysitter, but then sometimes they get sick. And, for me, if people wanted to hang out, I would prefer during the day when the kids are at school. It's easier. So it's exploring, do you still like the things that you liked 20 years ago? Are you trying to do, I love how you said Forever 21 and summer and whatever. Are you trying to recoup this? And what is actually in your preference as this version of you today? And sometimes it's really, really challenging, because other people are going to have opinions too, but you first. And like, I remember I said to somebody not that long ago, they're like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. And then they're like, oh, and they just started doing these plans. And I'm like, no, I didn't say I wanted to do something. I'm doing nothing. As in, like, the end. I've got a good book. I've got, the kids are out at a friend's place. This is, nothing is what I want to do. And then, sometimes people are like, oh, you're that's rude, or that's whatever. But that's my preference. If you want to ask, do you want to hang out or something, that's different. But it's like looking at what are you getting from the thing that you're doing?
Mm.
And is it, are you getting enjoyment from it, or are you doing it just because you've always done it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that it's just it's the familiarity oftentimes, right? And that's why getting curious is really the first step in so many areas. And even that lowering of inhibitions or using the external, whether it's food or alcohol. I mean, alcohol does have this, a major chemical response with the brain. And I know food can as well, but is even exploring like, what are the thoughts that I'm thinking that are creating a heightened sense of anxiety and not allowing me to feel comfortable? Because there's so much investigation there too of like, what thoughts am I putting into other people's heads that aren't there? And I think that that's kind of the second piece of the people pleasing is when one does make a shift and I'm sure you've explored this with food, just saying no, thank you. There is a huge part of the work that I do that is all about what other people will think. And I'll just say this, the truth is more people that drink care about where their next drink is coming from, and they really don't give a crap if your drink, like they really don't care as much. Now they might reflect on themselves if you guys have been drinking together for a long time, and that might be a point of reflection. People are going to have opinions, but we never truly know what is in someone else's mind, or even if they use words, we don't actually know how they truly feel, because oftentimes we project when we're feeling not
Yes.
our
Or
own
we interpret
regret.
what they mean. So I
Yeah.
imagine it's similar with drinking as it is with eating. One won't hurt. You deserve this. You've
Oh
had a
yeah.
hard day. And sometimes those words actually come out of their mouth. But when you're in a stronger place yourself, you don't take that as anything other than, oh, okay, moving it on. But in the back of
Mm-hmm.
your mind, like I know whenever I'm wanting to have a binge and I'm like, I know the people, I know exactly what to do, like who to ask, where to go. It's more them enabling what's already gone inside. And then I can blame it. I can go, oh, it's my husband's fault. He took us out
Yep.
here. Or it's my friend's fault. She always brings the good snacks. I invited her knowing full well. So I think sometimes it's that personal agency to go, yes, they might say things, but there's tools to change the conversation or nip it in the bud, or just say, like, I really don't find that helpful. One won't hurt, or you
Mm-hmm.
deserve this, or you've had a hard day, because life's hard sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Well,
usually it's your own wanting to get out of it that you look for people to
yes.
enable you.
100%, 100%. And I always say, if you wait to choose, if you don't make a decision ahead of time, and we have a strategy for doing that, like if it's a new habit, if we're unlearning it at the beginning, alcohol is going to end up choosing for you. So we create a mindset and a whole structure to show up to social situations with. And in the end, it's really about being honest, right? And I think even in that way, the people pleasing, when we stop people pleasing and we are honest about who we are, what we want, unapologetic about making healthy decisions for ourselves, you can really see like, who do I want to spend my time with? Because if I'm going to hang out with someone and I am being forthcoming and saying, hey, this just isn't working for me and I'm feeling way better without it, and then someone's going to try to pressure me, as a 40-something-year-old woman into drinking, well, I probably don't really want to be friends with that person anymore either, right? And so I kind of flip the script, and I say to people, if it was you and you were offering someone food or a beverage and they really didn't want it, would you want them to take it if they really didn't want it? Because in the end, it's not being forthcoming. And most people say, no, absolutely not, right? They want their guests or whoever to feel comfortable. And so we put people, thoughts in people's heads. And even if someone is enabling you, right, then that gives you so much more information about your preferences. Again, because I know early on in my journey, when I stopped drinking, there was definitely that, like, there were people that I cared about, that I wanted to shift our relationship. But then I kind of realized I don't really like hanging out with you when I'm 100% sober. Like, we don't actually have that much in common, or like, you bug me, whatever it was. Right. But so then, like, there's opportunity to grow a relationship, right? Into like my husband, my relationship with my husband and I, like we met and we were drinking all the time. We both don't drink anymore. So in that way, there was like a huge dynamic shift that had to where I got to go deeper, right? But then there was just some relationships that I had to like, it was a reason, a season, a lifetime, right? They served their purpose
Oh,
at the time.
yes.
And then it was like, now, our time together is done. And that is a part of the people pleasing too. It's like, I feel bad, right? Because like a friendship that I had ended, my son and this other family there, we had our babies like 5 days apart, and so the boys started growing up together, and it was really hard to change, but I was like, it's no, and so there was like in me, I had to work really hard to be honest enough with myself to say, this relationship is no longer serving me. And just being really honest and authentic about the transition and the transformation I was going through in my own life. And that oftentimes means, leaving the past in the past. And, but in the end, it's like, you don't like, you can look back, and oftentimes, most of the time you don't have regret about like, oh, I wish I was still hanging out with that person. Like, why, when you're
The
being honest and
season
authentic.
was
Yeah.
complete. I love that. Well, this has
Yeah.
been awesome, but we're at time. So I've got a
Yep.
few other areas I'll invite you back for another episode. But for the listeners, what work do you do and where can they find you?
Yes. Well, I am a holistic alcohol coach for women. And so I work one-on-one privately with women and help them take this beautiful journey, what I call beyond alcohol, kind of a before, during, and after process. And you don't have to be alcohol free to start. It's about curiosity and really centering yourself around change. And my website is marywagstaffcoach.com, just like my name on the podcast. So it's Wagstaff, Wagstaff. And all of my information on there, my podcast, and how to get in touch with me. So thank you so much. This was really fun.
I love it. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.